picture this. You walk into your favorite store, right? A place you feel comfortable, maybe peaceful even. You're greeted by friendly faces, people, maybe browsing through the aisles. But this time, it's different. There's this unsettling silence, a tension you can practically feel in the air. Something's wrong. Really wrong.
It's like that feeling when you know something bad is about to happen.
Exactly. Like a chill down your spine.
It's a reminder that even in places we think of as safe places we trust, danger can be hiding right under the surface, waiting.
And that's what makes this case we're looking at today so disturbing, so unsettling. This happened back in March of 2011 at a Lululemon store.
You know those yoga wear stores?
Yeah, in Bethesda, Maryland. It should have been just another day, but it turned into a nightmare.
This place, a place that usually represents peace and well-being, became the scene of a brutal murder. It just shatters that sense of security we all want to feel.
And as we start going through the details of this case, you'll see how something that seems so simple at first glance.
Right, so straightforward.
Exactly. How it quickly unraveled into this web of lies and jealousy.
Yeah.
Ultimately ending in a desperate act of violence.
It's a story that really grabs you, and it shows just how far someone will go when they're driven by ambition and despair.
Welcome to CrimePod Castle's Twisted Crime series. Today we're diving deep into the Lululemon murder. This case captivated the nation, and for good reason. It exposes the dark side of human nature, the lengths people will go to when they're backed into a corner. But before we get into all of that, let's take some time to learn about Jayna, the victim. She wasn't just an employee, she was a bright light in everyone's lives.
Absolutely. She was intelligent and outgoing, full of life. She was working at Lululemon part-time while she was going for her MBA. She had big dreams, and a contagious energy that just drew people to her.
It's truly heartbreaking to think about how her life was cut short, and in such a brutal way.
It's just senseless. And then there's Brittany. She worked alongside Jayna. She seemed ambitious and athletic. On the surface, she appeared friendly and capable. But when you look closer, there's a history of dishonesty and accusations of theft that followed her from job to job.
It's almost like these whispers of bad behavior were clues to a darker side. A potential for deception that, as we'll see, became tragically real. It's chilling to think that someone capable of such brutality could be working right alongside someone as kind and trusting as Jayna. So let's go back to that night, March 12th, 2011. Another employee came to the store and walked into a scene that would change everything.
Finding Jayna's body in the back of the store sent shockwaves through the community. The brutality of the attack was horrifying.
Over 330 injuries. Imagine that: stab wounds, blunt force trauma, defensive wounds. It's just unimaginable. The rage, the violence that must have been involved.
And at that point, Brittany was still sticking to her story about a robbery. She was found tied up, apparently traumatized, telling a terrifying story of survival. But something about it just didn't feel right to investigators.
It just didn't add up. Why would these supposed attackers leave a witness behind? And why target a store in such a busy, well-lit area? The pieces of the puzzle just didn't fit.
That's where the investigators' attention to detail really comes in. Well, for example, Brittany claimed that she had been sexually assaulted, but the medical exam didn't support that. And then there were all the security cameras from the stores nearby. Not a single one showed any sign of the two men that she described.
Her story was falling apart.
Unraveling bit by bit. And then there was the question of motive. What could have possibly driven Brittany to do something so horrific? The answer, it turned out, was both simple and disturbing.
I'm almost afraid to ask.
Earlier that evening, Jayna had caught Brittany stealing a pair of leggings.
You're kidding. A pair of leggings led to this.
It's hard to believe, right, that something so seemingly small could lead to such a brutal murder.
It's a reminder that sometimes the smallest things can trigger the darkest impulses.
Exactly. It's about fear, desperation, a twisted sense of self-preservation.
The prosecution's theory was that Brittany panicked, terrified of getting caught and facing the consequences. She made a choice, a terrible choice, to silence Jayna for good.
And the sheer brutality of the attack seems to back that up. It wasn't quick or impulsive. This was a prolonged and methodical assault, a level of rage and planning that's hard to fathom.
It's chilling. So what did the defense say?
They tried to paint a different picture. They argued that Brittany wasn't some cold-blooded killer, but a young woman who just snapped in the heat of the moment.
Like a temporary insanity kind of thing?
Right. They claimed it wasn't premeditated, just a crime of passion, an impulsive act fueled by anger and fear. But could that really explain the level of violence inflicted on Jayna? That was the question the jury had to answer.
Tough question for sure.
The defense was trying to portray Brittany as someone who was overwhelmed by the situation, but the prosecution meticulously laid out a case that pointed to premeditation. They argued that Brittany lured Jayna back to the store on purpose, using the excuse of a forgotten item, setting the stage for the attack.
So it was all planned out.
That's what the prosecution argued, and the evidence did seem to support that. The staged crime scene, the made-up story, the sheer brutality of it all, it pointed to a carefully planned and executed act.
Wow, what a web of deceit.
In the end, the jury sided with the prosecution. In 2012, Brittany Norwood was found guilty of first-degree murder, sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. A tragic end to a story that had gripped the nation. Two young women, their lives intersecting in the most unexpected and horrific way. One, a victim robbed of her future, her dreams left unfulfilled. The other, consumed by her own demons, condemned to a life behind bars. This case raises so many questions, not just about the nature of evil, but also about the systems we rely on to keep us safe.
You're right. It makes you wonder what could have been done differently.
Absolutely. It forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about workplace safety, about the warning signs we often miss, and about the responsibility we all have to create a world where tragedies like this are less likely to happen.
It's easy to get lost in the shocking details of a case like this.
Yeah.
But what really stays with me is the impact on everyone involved, Jayna's family and friends. They were left to deal with this unimaginable pain. And the whole community, reeling from the fact that something so horrific could happen in a place they thought was safe.
You're right. This case goes way beyond just the courtroom. It's a stark reminder that violence can happen anywhere, even in seemingly peaceful communities. And it raises important questions about how we can better protect ourselves and each other.
So much of this case focuses on Brittany's choices, her actions. But I keep thinking about accountability. Could this have been prevented if someone had addressed her history of dishonesty earlier on?
That's a really important question. It's impossible to know for sure, but it does highlight how important it is to recognize and address problematic behavior early on, whether it's in our personal relationships or at work. We have a responsibility to hold each other accountable for our actions.
And maybe, if there had been more open communication, more willingness to confront difficult situations, things might have turned out differently.
It's a powerful lesson that even small acts of dishonesty can spiral out of control. And it shows how important it is to create a culture of transparency and accountability in all parts of our lives.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Lululemon Murder, what are some key takeaways for our listeners? What can we learn from Jayna's story, from the tragedy that unfolded in that Bethesda store?
I think one of the most important things to remember is to trust your gut. If something feels off, if someone's behavior is raising red flags, don't ignore those feelings. It's always better to be safe than sorry. Speak up, whether it's to a friend, a family member, or the authorities.
It's about creating a culture where people feel comfortable coming forward with their concerns, knowing that they'll be taken seriously.
Exactly. It's about open communication, encouraging people to seek help when they need it, and remembering that we all have a role to play in preventing violence and creating safer communities.
Jayna Murray's life was tragically cut short, but her story serves as a powerful reminder of how important vigilance, accountability, and compassion truly are.
It's a reminder that even in the face of darkness, there's always hope. Hope for a world where these kinds of tragedies are less likely to happen. Hope for healing and justice for the victims. And hope for a future where everyone feels safe and supported.
Thank you for joining us on this journey, for exploring this case with us. We hope this episode has made you think and encouraged you to be more aware and involved in your own communities.
And remember, even though we've reached the end of this deep dive, the conversation doesn't have to end here. We encourage you to keep thinking about these issues, to share your thoughts and insights, and to work towards a world where everyone feels safe and valued.
And don't forget to follow and subscribe to CrimePod Castle and our YouTube channel for more true crime explorations. Until next time, stay safe and stay curious.